So welcome everybody to the April meeting of IFMA San Diego. We're going to go through our slide announcements right now. This is what is happening in the rest of April, our May meeting, and then what everyone is waiting for, the golf tournament. So let's start out with our first slide, which is I Love a Clean San Diego. Which is, there it is, there it is. I Love a Clean San Diego. Now this is kind of sort of done virtually, but what we need to do is use the QR code to register with I Love a Clean San Diego, get on the IFMA team. And if you need to get a bucket, like it says, need a reusable bucket, at the bottom there is Kara from Snyder Electric. Just contact her and she'll make sure you get one. So going to the next slide, and that's the 24th at 9 a.m. We have a breakfast for Oceana is going to be coming and talking to us about plastics and commercial influence. We want to make sure we're not contributing to the pollution in the ocean. Our speaker is Brady, and boy, he flipped out. And there is our QR code. If you would like to register, please put your telephone up there, take a little picture, or your phone will do the work, and get you over to the registration page and please register. Our next one, on May 12th, we'll have our next meeting, and it's regarding the RFP process. And that is a panel discussion. So with that right there, just start planning May to spend with us and talk more about RFPs. Next one is for those who want to be part of the credential learning. If you want to get your credential for F&P or CFM or SFP, we have dates for those courses to happen. And we have a QR code right there for the F&P classes since they are happening first. The CFM exam review, we don't have the QR code at this time, but please know it is June 2nd, and you can contact us in the chat right now if you'd like to let us know that you're interested, and we'll get information out to you. And then our last one is the golf tournament. QR code for you to register. They do have foursomes and twosomes, and they will handle individual golfers as space allows. There are a lot of sponsorship opportunities, and there's a lot of fun stuff planned. This is a great, great event. Everyone looks forward to it. So we're very happy that we could bring it to you on June 4th at Rancho Bernardo Inn. Remember to register, contact Brian Shute. If you want to sponsor something, we'd be happy to have you. Last but not least, when we have our speaker today, I want you to know that you can put questions in the chat. Any questions that you have about any of the events coming up or how fabulous Will's hair looks, we can ask in the chat what he uses to make it look so great. So just please use the chat feature. We're happy to answer your questions. And now an exciting time as I throw it over to Lydia as she talks about our new members. Lydia?
Thank you, Sherry, and welcome everyone. It's so great to see you all. Zorro back there as well. Oh, now he's a Frenchman. The fun things we do, man. So I'd like to introduce our new members, and this is pretty exciting. You know, we've got two new members that are facility managers, and I'll start with Mark Leugman. He's a
very good. You got it.
All right. He's the presently the facility director of True Care, a federally qualified healthcare organization with 12 locations throughout North County and Riverside, making healthcare accessible to underserved population. The facilities department is responsible for all repair maintenance of major systems, building envelopes, and equipment across our leased and owned facilities, which include administrative functions. And they also take on a lead as a tenant improvement, capital project, system preventative maintenance, and new building acquisition and build outs. That's a lot for a facility manager, as you all know. And then when Mark is not working, he's an avid street motorcyclist rider, both with his group and his spouse. And he spends time with his family and friends in Southern California and their vacation home in Oregon coast. And in the past few years, this is wonderful, he's been operating a food cupboard from his home in Vista for folks feeling the effects of the pandemic through the partnerships of many providers. Welcome, Mark. We really are excited to have you on board with this wonderful chapter and IFMA organization.
Thanks very much. I'm glad to be here. I'm looking forward to it.
You got it. And then our next new member is Paul Ibarra, and Paul works with Mark, and he's part of True Care, a community, again, health organization that provides quality care to the underserved. And he's been serving North County. They've been serving North County for over 49 years and continue to grow with expansions into Riverside County. His role of the organization is to manage 13 buildings while providing service to over 600 staff, making sure it is in working order to provide service for their patients. And outside of that, he enjoys 5K racing, playing golf. So you need to come join us, Paul. And then time camping as well as fishing. So welcome, Paul and Mark. We greatly appreciate you being a part of our chapter. Looking forward to, when we get out of this virtual scene, that we're able to actually meet and, bump fist and be able to say hi and get to know you better. Welcome.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Looking forward to being a part of the association, looking for all the great work that we all do and the great networking that can take place.
Thank you. We're excited. And I'm going to pass it down to Brian, who sponsors or is the co-chair for our sponsorship.
Hello, I'm Brian Shute, co-chair for sponsorship. And this meeting's sponsor is Pegasus Building Services. They're a longtime IFMA supporter, an annual supporter with us. And so I wanted to welcome Scott Moray. And Scott is going to tell us a little bit about Pegasus and how they help facility managers and facilities in San Diego and elsewhere, I believe. Scott?
Hi, thank you for the warm welcome and introduction. I'm kind of pitch hitting for Brett, who is, as most of you know, an avid member of IFMA. And so bear with me. I'll try to keep this quick and not bore you to death. We all know that cleaning is an important part of keeping your facility safe. And more so than ever these days with, unfortunately, the COVID outbreaks and the virus. And so we've been working really diligently to provide safe return to work programs in our janitorial space. Primarily, we have a lot of businesses that are scaling up, and we know that facility managers it's a tough job. And you oftentimes don't get thanked enough, but you definitely get notified if things aren't going well. So we want to help support you with a return to work program. Maybe you used to have 500 employees and now they're telling you can only bring 200 back. And then in 6 months, you're going to bring another 300 back. And so how do we scale that up? Well, we have programs for that. We're working really hard with some of our clients to help them get their employees and clients safely back to work and create a safe environment, obviously, for them to continue to work. And so there's a couple different ways we do that. We've been in business for about since 1969. So we've been in the cleaning business over 50 years. We are 100% employee owned, which is one of the rare things that we can offer our clients that some of our competitors can't, because we feel that employees that have skin in the game are going to be a lot more effective. That reduces turnover, which we know is something that is a problem in the cleaning business. You see a revolving door of people. Nope. We train and make sure our employees are happy and safe, offer them a livable wage and benefits that they can go out and benefit their families and better their lives. Up to, in addition, we employ 2 life coaches. Their full-time job is to keep our employees happy. So we feel happy employees take care of our clients. And that's why we've been ranked recently as one of the 5,000 fastest growing private companies in America by Inc. magazine. Feel free to look us up. So we're really proud of that endorsement that we got last year, and especially in a COVID year when everybody's struggling, right? So that in our janitorial space, obviously we clean, we empty trash, we do all the stuff you would think we would do. But one of the things that we're leveraging in addition to better supervision, training, back to work programs is technology. You might not think of technology in the cleaning space, but how do you know your building's been cleaned? How do you know that bathroom's been cleaned? How do you know that area has been cleaned? Well, we've just seen recently here on this Zoom, some QR codes floating around. Well, that's what we do too. We can put stickers on doors to say, hey, that building was cleaned at 9:53 a.m. So if the president of the company walks by and says, hey, what's going on over here? You can say, hey, Pegasus was just here, or they're due to be here in a couple of hours or whatever it is. And you have that real-time information at your fingertips. And we think that's powerful in the cleaning business. So we're doing a lot of other things, but I don't want to take up too much time. The only other things I wanted to mention, in addition to the standard janitorial services that we offer, our 2 fastest growing divisions are data center division. We're doing specialized data center cleanings all over the country for organizations you would have heard of. But unfortunately, we have to sign NDAs and can't always share that information. And so that's a very specialized, highly needed type of cleaning. Obviously, more people are working from home these days. And because of that, we need more bandwidth. And because of that, co-locations are growing and server farms are growing. So we want to service those clients as well. And then probably our fastest growing division is our clean room division. With all the COVID research, R&D, med device, pharmaceutical, I mean, you name it, that we are expanding the super clean rooms, and our clean room division is in high demand right now. And as Brian mentioned, we have locations in Phoenix, San Diego, Los Angeles, Orange County, Bay Area, and we are looking to expand north and west, or excuse me, and east. So I'm our director of sales. I'm again pinch hitting for Brett, who is your regular member. Just wanted to let you know that Brett is moving into a training and supervisor role. He will still be servicing IFMA, but we will be bringing on the new San Diego janitorial rep. His name is Mike Raspa, so I hope to get him involved in a future meeting. But you won't be losing Brett. You'll just be adding Mike. And I'm always here at your service because I manage the team. So if there's no other questions, that's all I have for you. So thank you very much for the time.
Thank you, Scott. Appreciate it. Back to Lydia. Talk a little bit about our speaker today. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you. I'm very excited because this, as you know, is very dear to my heart and what I do every day. And Lance will be discussing various long-term security trends and plans that building owners will be considering and implementing in post-COVID work environment. And, you know, he's here, he volunteered for us to be here and to speak on behalf of those trends and the new technologies that are out there, you know, to get our people back to work safe. Lance Holloway has over 26 years experience in bridging physical and logical security in the corporate environment. He built and managed STANLEY Software Solutions Group, a top shelf IT security hybrid support team of engineers. I call them the little guys with their Yoda shirts on, then Mountain Dews, and they drink all day. And they're super smart people. And with his experience in aviation, higher ed, critical infrastructure, retail, and financial institutions, Lance has brought his love for technology to STANLEY Strategic Vertical Groups to aid customers in navigating today's IT and expanding technological landscape. Welcome, Lance. And again, thank you from the bottom of my heart for volunteering to speak on today's topic.
Yeah, my pleasure, Lydia. Thank you very much. Yeah, it's a privilege to be here. Appreciate it, everyone. Thank you for continuing to keep the energy going virtually. It's so important. I think we blink and another year has gone by, and we're all hopeful to be able to get face-to-face again soon. But this is very helpful, and I certainly would not have submitted such a long introduction if I had known I'd be looking everybody in the eye during that whole thing. It's like, yeah, anyway, so I do love technology. I've been involved in security and getting security implemented. I have a passion for not just the technology, but how it gets applied. It's very important. You can invest in a golden brick and it's shiny and everybody's ooh and ah, but if it doesn't leverage any kind of streamlining or organization or protect folks or whatever, it just isn't really achieving the mission we had gone for. So I do have some slides I'll share, and I'll kind of be brief through those. But what I want to do is convey from my notes some of the trends that I'm seeing across all sorts of different kinds of companies as far as technology and the way it's impacting. So I'm going to go and share my screen. And looks like I will need permissions to do that, or if someone would mind putting my copy of the deck up.
Will, do you have that? Or Karen?
Sorry, Lance, you're good to go now.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, so there's everybody's bright and shiny smiley faces there. Let's do this, and we're going to collapse that. There we go. Okay, can everyone see my screen all right? Lydia?
Yes, you're good.
Okay.
Yes, I
perfect.
see it.
Very good.
Sorry, Lance, I was on mute.
That's right. Somebody needs to let Randy in, looks like. Okay, so as I mentioned, what I wanted to do is convey some of the trends that I see coming, and it's this last year and a half have been exceptional. You know, you've had the steady increase of video technology or network technology, things like that, but the whole pandemic just went ahead and put everything into a mixing bowl. And it's been fascinating to see how so many organizations like yourselves have really dug in to solve these equations. How do we get people back into work? How do we maintain productivity? How do we ensure safety for folks? And not just safety, but there's a dark backside to everything we're putting out there, this cybersecurity as well. How do we do it in a responsible manner that doesn't wind up becoming a liability as quickly as it gets implemented? And so I want to talk about what the best practices are that are emerging around that, some of the technology, not necessarily by brand, but by category, so that as you are going out and looking, or you're hearing different questions that need solutions in your workspace, you've got the ability to say, I know technology today is capable of A, B, and C. And I'd certainly heard the team talking about hoteling and some of those elements beforehand. We'll brush on that shortly, because it is one of the mega trends going on right now. Everyone's trying to figure out how to use their space more effectively. So we'll get into a little bit of that shortly, but there's some other dimensions I wanted to mention. Today's pressures on the work environment, you know, we talked about the pandemic, cybersecurity, data privacy is also another one that has exploded since GDPR in Europe had come down. There's some serious laws around employee information, visitor information, things like that. Achieving governance and optimization. I have a passion about putting technologies in, but if I can't manage it with one dashboard, if I can't manage it in a streamlined manner, it's actually become a greater burden for me to try to keep all the plates spinning than it's actually helping. The technology should leverage it in a way where I gain a percentage of optimization. I gain visibility and situational awareness around, you know, the ebb and flow of people coming out of my facilities, leaving, inventory, et cetera, that I should be able to gain from that. And so again, there's so many caveats because the products have really flooded the market around so many of these solutions that it's easy to get, you know, a fork or a spoon, but not the whole table set. And we want to make sure that you measure twice and cut once. So talking to other people, getting just good consultation, even just a sounding board from other folks, what are you doing, et cetera, will really pay handsome dividends. And then I want to follow it up with kind of what's called a use case or workflow. We'll go through kind of a fictitious, somebody comes to your facility and what it might look like with some of today's technologies. You know, I had mentioned, you know, the changes that the pandemic have impacted on business, talking about COVID-19, but even once COVID-19, God willing, is done, I don't know that anybody's ever going to go back to not doing some kind of a health attestation or questionnaire for folks coming on site. You know, have you been to certain areas? Have you, you know, have you had any kind of symptoms, et cetera? I think those types of behaviors will be here to stay, especially as how easy it is to implement those things. Why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you add just another element of due diligence and due care for your workforce and for your company? Cybersecurity, data privacy. I'm going to try to really boil that down. I don't know how many IT background folks we have on today's call, but I want to translate it into just pure business speak. How does this impact me? Why does it impact me? And what could I do about it? Sometimes it is a foreign language to sit there and hear requirements from an IT department, but to see that translated into an actual business plan that can afford, you know, an actual roadmap to get things done, and more importantly, kind of a bonus round, have it be in confluence with your hotel and your space management, your visitor management, et cetera. So we'll talk about that a little bit and some of the caveats there. And then technological progress. You know, we'll get into really the mobile app is kind of the fulcrum of just how you implement almost anything today. Previous generations of the mobile apps really were problematic. I'm a bit of a cynic when it comes to technology, and certainly, you know, all my different customers, anyway down to a basic retail location, their cybersecurity needs are one thing. But if you have a Fortune 100 executive and she signs billion-dollar acquisitions, well, you got to be aware of, is there Bluetooth on in the vicinity? Is there cellular? How's this happening? Do the phones get put in a bucket when you go into this interior room? That whole scale, it even begins to sound ludicrous to a lot of folks who aren't into the corporate espionage or intellectual property theft. But if you have any kind of facility with intellectual property or patents that are actually giving you an advantage in the marketplace, it really pays to just be aware of what's out there and provide some mitigation. So we'll talk about technology. So first, the safe workplace and healthy return to work. You know, the first part of 2020 was an avalanche of products and technologies. Everyone and their mother's cousin, and the person who lived down the street from their mother's cousin had some kind of new temperature detection widget, a miracle camera, any kind of thing there. Some of them were radically priced. Some temperature detection cameras had been reappropriated from detecting, you know, warm bodies walking across a field. And, oh yeah, let's put one in our lobby now and point it right at the door, when they didn't realize that they needed half a degree of accuracy in determining somebody's skin surface temperature detection in order to more accurately flag if somebody maybe had a problematic temperature and needed some triage, maybe to be escalated to HR or a nursing staff, or just be asked to maybe reschedule their visit after a certain period of time. So with that, Stanley had really kind of gone through, we had a lot of people bump their nose on the glass metaphorically in the industry by adopting technologies too quickly. So some of the things that wound up being minefields for these technologies, one, what can you say legally? You can't say fever detection or COVID detection because it has to be an FDA certified process, professional managing it. All we really can say is that we're doing skin temperature detection. And so kind of backing that off, it's a legal terminology piece, but a lot of people actually got in trouble because it leads to an overstatement of what technologies can or can't do. And what we try to do is set up a series of flags that allow you to more accurately assess the ability to have folks come in, no problem, or hey, can you come over into this other lane or this other service window, or call so-and-so, whatever your workflow would be if somebody does come in and they have a temperature that's escalated, say 102, 103 degree temperature. In addition to the surveys, we found far and away, everybody is sending surveys out to their visitors and their employees before they come on premise. And that's really the best way of doing it, but it's still an honor system. So you still may want to have some manner in there for, just checking very quickly. We'll see here in a moment, a couple of things. One is the next piece was the accuracy of some of these. You can see in the bottom left, this very happy individual. We have a thermal photo of him, but this little section in the screen called a black body background. So the United States National Institute of Standards and Technology had dictated that in order to make sure your camera is tuned, if you're going to really detect within a half a degree, what happens if I'm in a sunny Southern California lobby and that whole back window is just lit up as gloriously as possible? Or what happens if I'm up in a New England, cave and I'm checking in and the temperatures are, the ambient temperature may adjust that. So the black body background means you have to have a 0 point of reference. It's exactly 98.6 degrees, because that's what you want to tune to. And it has to be visible in that screen if you're using camera technology. So those are just some examples of little gotchas. So if somebody's like, hey, we've got a temperature thing in the lobby or whatever, ask a few questions, find out if a little bit of homework was done, and certainly ask, other professionals for, recommendations and what things have begun to emerge. Another element is the National Defense Authorization Act. As you know, there's some computer chipsets and some even security equipment that's manufactured. And it's not necessarily because of the country of origin is the reason. The reason is that some of these manufacturers specifically that are listed on a Homeland Security site might have a backdoor login that you can't turn off. So there's security cameras, there's a whole lot of product lines that go out that may not be NDAA certified. And you want to make sure you ask if the cameras, if you have any legacy cameras in your facility, make sure you ask, especially if you have intellectual property, because there have been, there's been situations where there have been compromises, not necessarily from specific countries, but nefarious actors who may know those vulnerabilities are out there may leverage that. And so again, the technology really kind of has to be vetted through a number of these pieces there. And then on top of all that, we talk about the front of the shield wall, so to speak, and we'll go through a little bit of that here, but it's still got to be a usable dashboard. It still has to be a meaningful alert. If I'm getting gibberish from 3 or 4 different texts on my phone, at some point I'm going to begin to ignore that. I need meaningful escalation data. I need to have it vetted correctly. And so we typically coach what we call workflows. After you've begun to glue together a couple of different technologies to meet the needs in your lobbies or your facilities, your check-in, if you have drivers or contractors arriving, you need to have certain conditions where the right people are notified of certain instances. And that might be a camera seeing a truck pull up in the wrong place. It might be somebody answering negatively to a health screen survey. But those workflows, literally, if you've seen a Visio workflow diagram, it's a whiteboard session or a planning session to sit down and go, okay, when somebody comes in, someone needs to know about it. I'm sure many of you already have these dictated, but we love to take that and make sure the technology you've invested in actually supports that and reflects your workflows. Now, second here, I'm going to show this video here. Laura is at our headquarters. She's walking up to a tablet. It'd be like an iPad. She pretends her badge. The reader on the wall is checking the temperature on her forehead, but also is checking to make sure she's wearing a mask. And any of those flagging negatively would have denied her access. And if you wanted, could have alerted a certain individual, whomever you would dictate. So I like the fluidity and the high throughput of this. You can actually have some other major lobbies where you have multiple stations side by side. And if you have a higher throughput for workers or folks coming in, and there's a few extra widgets on the wall that may or may not be necessary. That's our technology center in Indianapolis. So we like bells and whistles. We like hooking all that up. But I just want to give you an idea of the feel of what that's like for a healthy return to work. And you can even have that system cap if there's so many people have come into the building. Her Wi-Fi privileges could turn on if she was a contractor or a guest, and then turn off when she leaves. There's so many things that you can do to artfully connect these systems. And to me, that's the important part. Like I said, if you invest in them, but they're problematic or burdensome, it kind of smacks poorly, especially internally, as hard as we try to sell internally to upper brass who's approving certain budgets. If they are a little bit disheartened or ticked off about how the lobby went, they just don't like how that feel goes. Got to have a user experience. Okay, sorry, get a little chatty here. I got to move along. Cybersecurity. So I'm going to say a whole bunch of stuff in Latin and Greek, and but again, it's the same thing. The technical attributes need to empower your business. So some things to watch for. Something called IoT. IBM coined the phrase Internet of Things, and that's, hey, look, this thing goes on the network. Boom, you plug it in, and now I can talk to it on my mobile app. Well, that's great. So can everybody else on the internet now. And so security cameras, network video recorders, doorbells, security gates, you name it. Anything that goes on the network now is under stringency from IT to make sure that it's hardened, that it's being taken care of, to shut any back doors. Passwords are being changed on a frequent basis to match your policy for your company. Making sure it has the most current software version. There's cameras that need updates. There's servers, things like that. And then more importantly, if anything weird happens or a firmware gets old or something, who does it notify and how? Is there a dashboard that's notifying somebody? A lot of the major hacks in the news would be something that just went without a patch for a while and nobody really knew. And somebody was able to kind of land on that, start nesting and setting up kind of a camp. And that's how hackers do it. It's not a one button, shut the whole thing down. They find a crack somewhere, set up shop and sniff and listen for maybe a month or more. And then they learn more. Then they see where Lydia sends an email to Lance or back or forth, and they learn that. So you got to have something watching that as a dashboard. So we always advise doing kind of what we call a risk assessment on any of your security equipment that's going in. It's again, some of it's really attractive, mobile apps, all that stuff. Just make sure somebody's got a bill of health that they can hand over to IT about some foresight and thinking about it. Servers, your security software going in. Some of those softwares have a web page built into the back end that maybe you never intend to use, but it's still a vanilla web page just sitting there. And hackers love to scan for vanilla web pages or things that people aren't paying attention to. So making sure hardening guides are typically produced by manufacturers. So if you have 4 or 5 different products in your security ecosystem, make sure that all of them have produced a hardening guide, how to go through a checklist to turn off any backdoors, things like that. And where you need help, professional services. Stanley, a number of other integrators offer professional services. You have some white hat and red hat groups that will do some very noble work on your behalf. And again, also official risk assessments, pen tests for high security areas. And then this last one, this red arrow here, one trend that's really happening quite a bit. IT has built their Active Directory services or their identity management. What that means is, let's say, for example, you're the head of IT for your company. Well, the first thing you've got to do is get a list of all your employees, all your contractors, anybody who has to log into the network, and get that organized. And there's some very powerful tools out there today that are very standard. And then you're going to organize who has permission to get to what files and to log into what equipment and what equipment they were issued. You're going to organize tremendous amount of organization done by the IT departments in this. Why can't we take all that organization and have it automatically cascade down into the security systems? So Lance Holloway gets hired day one. I have permission to log into these computers and access this inventory software, et cetera. But also because I'm in facility 8, in the engineer team or lab team or whatever team, those permissions can also translate into my security levels, so that as soon as I'm hired, HR sends a note to electronically, the system does through the security system, and my badge is ready for me to go as soon as I check in. And it also allows me to go to just the places I need to go. So all of that can be automated. The reason that's important, percentage of human error. When you start getting a lot of badges being issued to contractors, it is actually very stereotypical to have a phone call where somebody says, hey, we had a contractor from 3 years ago walk in and their badge worked today. Well, that was oversight, right? Somebody didn't get an email, there's et cetera. And you certainly don't want those types of gaps. By making sure those systems are connected and talking, you can automate that and reduce those issues, as well as save a tremendous amount of time issuing those permissions and deprovisioning. Okay, hopefully everybody's conscious. I'm not able to see everybody's face right now. This is fascinating stuff for me. So, and I appreciate you all hanging in there. Data privacy. This is a bit of a newer one over the last couple of years. And basically when we get down to it, there's newer laws emerging. And I've got a next slide that gives some actual very practical examples. Laws are emerging about the employee, contractor, and visitor information you store in your security systems, as well as other systems. Typically, each manufacturer that stores data in their database, you have to identify what kind of information it is. And IT probably has already whapped some knuckles for people on the call. Or maybe you've already got a very aggressive or progressive system in place where folks are planning that out. A lot of planning goes into declaring this. So let me come down into here, but this consent is probably one of the biggest squares on this page around data privacy. So I'm going to get about halfway down the page and give an actual case study on this, or a piece here. Biometric information, whether it's for a time clock or just getting in, is considered personally identifiable information. So GDPR is the new data privacy element, not that new, 2017, 18, I think, but it's growing, and it's actually done well enough that the rest of the world is following suit. But GDPR covers people not only in the EU, but systems that contain information on EU citizens, even if it's in the United States. But another example of more regional was in Illinois. A mother had found out that her son had been enrolled in a biometric system at a amusement park. And she was not asked for any kind of consent. And now it's an image of his face is stored in somebody else's system. And that had gone to court. And that resulted in what we call Illinois BIPA, or Biometric Information Privacy Act. And there's some real fines. In fact, the penalty can be $1,000 to $10,000 per person per use. So there's been some labor unions issues where a time clock, pardon me, I'm going to clear my throat. Throat gets a little dry, my apologies. Time clock, where the union had contested the use of biometrics for a time clock. And it was around $7,000 per person per instance was the overall lawsuit. So anywhere you're considering using biometrics or in security, especially if there's any kind of mobile app or recognition, just make sure it's been mapped out and talked about and planned. So the main thing that's bottom line here is consent. So especially the spirit of GDPR, let your folks know what kind of biometrics are being taken, why it's being taken, how it's being used, how it's being stored and secured, and give them consent, give them disclosure, let them know. And then typically there will be an opt-out. Somebody may say, no, I don't want to scan my face or my hand or my fingerprint. Just give me a good old-fashioned card and I'll be good enough. And that'll be up to your corporate policies to manage that. Often there might be a small population of people who just want to opt out of any kind of biometrics or system like that. It's not an issue if it's planned out and communicated well ahead of time. Some of these areas on the screen here, again, it's really just to protect folks' private information, how it's being stored. All right. Onward, bold travelers. So technology evolution. Just to be quite blunt, mobile apps had always been problematic for me personally. I know a lot of manufacturers like, oh, we got a mobile app for this or that, but not until maybe in the last year have I seen any that met my criteria for user experience and cybersecurity all in the same piece. And they're here now. And so you can actually have your mobile phone authenticate you. We talk about biometrics. If you're using the biometric on my phone, I've already given consent to Apple or Android to store that there, and you actually don't need my biometric. The software will actually give you an encrypted key that represents me, and now you don't have to store any of my biometric information on your site. You just need my phone number, and I need the ability to hit a button to opt out and be purged from the system in some instances. So that is a wonderful day around mobile technology. We have some customers that actually have developers of their own who are merging multiple apps. So when they come in, they want heating and air to come on. They want somebody to be able to reserve a conference room. They want to be able to do that. There's a lot of ways to arrange that integration between the systems, but that's the cauldron that's brewing right now. Everybody's looking to come up with a single dashboard, but everybody's needs are really different. So you have property managers like Jones, Lang, LaSalle, and a few others that we work with that have some software that'll cover certain areas like making sure the reserving, the hoteling, the reservations, et cetera. But and they're turning on for smart building type lighting and heating, things like that. But then we need to also integrate, say, for example, Cisco to make sure the Wi-Fi is enabled in a cyber secure manner, not just ad hoc. On top of that, connecting to your access control, to your parking, reservations, et cetera. So that type of integration is really kind of the brass ring that's going on today. A lot of people are trying to find a way to do this because that brings us up to today. Tomorrow, people are asking to be able to sublet or sublease large floor plans. Hey, we've downscaled. Most people are working remotely. Can this technology help us then sublet, the second floor to someone else? The good programs can. The good programs can even give a delegate from that tenant the ability to work with their piece of the pie while you get the administrative oversight and pieces like that. So that's really kind of where a lot of these things are heading. It's pretty fascinating. But like I said, it's a bit of a glutted market. A lot of marketing, you have to weed whack and boil it down and really get to some folks. So my main piece of advice to folks is set up a pilot or a proof of concept of what you're asking for. Most manufacturers will be very willing to help you set up a small footprint and a lower risk area where you can see it working for yourself, because sometimes it takes the discipline of gluing together a couple of different products artfully to make sure you're getting what you want. And as that size of investment, that's your right as a customer. You have the right to ask for a pilot, a 30-day, 60-day, or something like that. Make sure it's organized so that you have, once you've determined everything's working correctly, then you can bring your upper management in or whomever you're selling to internally to say, okay, this is what we're proposing. And there it is, not just a slide deck. A lot of folks, unfortunately, have invested based on a slide deck only, and that can get some folks burned. So last thing there, you can see a heat map for social distancing, but also how do my employees move through the facility? How does my inventory move through this facility, et cetera? So I have unpacked a tremendous amount. I'm going to briefly go through a fictitious visit here. And I think the top is actually cut off a little bit, but starting from left to right, the top, pre-arrival background survey, at the threshold, authentication and screening, and the analytics and alerts that could be done, the systems integration. And then at the tail end, I want to see all that data. After a year, 2 years of all this stuff running, 6 months, 1 month, I want to see trends. I want to know that facility A has seen a 30% increase in utilization, or the facility B, folks are arming or disarming or coming in, earlier than they said they would. I need that telemetry and that information. I need better situational awareness and being able to then put things in motion. So starting on the left, you see a gentleman in the coffee shop before he goes into work. He gets a health assessment survey, answers the questions. You can change those based on HR and whatever your preference would be. But then at the threshold, you can see the young lady at the bottom there checking with security. She has a QR code that was sent to her as a visitor in a text or an email where someone had set up the visit for her to show up. She hands the QR code. And in this instance there, she actually hands her driver's license to him. He puts the driver's license in a reader, and it's not taking anything secret. It's just automatically taking her name off of that driver's license and entering it into the system rapidly, and then calling up if she's a valid visit or who she's visiting or whatever you want to have there. The reader and the second from the left at the top there, this is a company called ZK Techo, and this is one of the ones we lean on quite a bit. You'd seen Laura walk up to that door earlier, and it's able to read the temperature through near infrared. It's able to avoid spoofing, so I can't just walk up with a high resolution photo that happens to be 98.6 degrees or something like that. But it can also determine if I'm wearing a mask, if you have a mask enforcement policy. All those have to be true, plus the survey, plus an electronic NDA or whatever you'd want. It really is your threshold, it's your lobby. You dictate what you want to have happen before folks come. And then on the back end, you can have it integrated with your IT systems, SAP, Oracle. Is there a current work order open, Workday, service tickets, any of those things? You can actually have their network privileges turned on just for the duration of their visit. And but once all that's done, like I said a moment ago, I want to look at all that data, and I want a machine learning program to show me trends. I want to know that I get false alarms on certain evenings instead of others, or any of that data. And that's something that's a pretty exciting workshop. It's a lot of fun, very rewarding to do with customers, grabbing their data and then pulling in some subject matter experts that are used to operations, and you certainly have some in your facilities. They can look at that data and go, oh, wow, I didn't know that was going on. And if you make an adjustment that shaves off 5% here, 10% there, those are big wins. They really are. It's fun to see that stuff come alive. So that's kind of it in conclusion. I know I dumped out a real duffel bag of information and technologies, but like I said, my goal was to really depict, I want folks to hear, hey, the technology can do A or B, to raise your expectation around, is this element cyber secure? Did we get data privacy double checked on this? Can I get information out of this to a dashboard? Is this mobile capable? And can I see a proof of concept to get this thing done in a way that allows me to be sure what I'm about to pull the trigger on? So with that, I'd like to thank everybody profusely for the time and the privilege of addressing the group here. Any questions or Lydia?
Yeah, Lance, we have a couple questions here from Johnny Macias. How does NDAA compliance fall into your decision-making? Would you revamp your entire CTV platform? Are there easier ways?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think if you believe you have a product line that's in there, what you want to do is a gap analysis. A, is it cheaper to replace those, or B, to isolate them? If you know they might be susceptible to somebody connecting, then shut off the ability for that to be connected. There's IT tricks of the trade that can be done. It really is more around awareness. Now, the mandate under NDAA states that any federal government entity or anybody doing business with the federal government is not allowed to utilize that equipment or even procure that equipment. And so you just want to get a game plan on how to mitigate that. You know, do you take some cameras and replace them temporarily? Do you phase that into something, or is it mission critical and you've got to get something else? It's going to vary by customer. Hopefully that answered that question.
Yeah, and it's going to vary by what do you actually have in place. So that's something that, you know, Johnny, you should definitely check with your provider. You know, I'm going through this right now with a client that, you know, we need to upgrade their NVR, their recorders, and we need to make sure that their existing cameras not only are going to be compatible with the new, you know, technology, but that their existing cameras are not in that NDAA list. So we're running an audit, you know, of all of the pre-existing. So have your, you know, your vendor, your integrator help you do that and see, you know, do we need to move on and, you know, replace them, or, you know, are we good? And, you know, do that analysis and check for sure. And then we have another question from Alexander William. Is GDRP also required in the UK?
Yes, sir, it is. It's specifically, it's European Union, but UK follows that pretty tightly because, again, it not only applies just to European citizens in Europe, it applies to European citizens in your company that are interacting with your facility. So in the UK, of course, even after Brexit, they have a tremendous number of folks working, but really it creates kind of a standard, really, that a lot of groups are adhering to. Just as it's a great standard. You know, the penalties for GDPR are significant, and they did that to try to get everybody's attention so that my name in this database doesn't suddenly show up over here and I'm, you know, I have no idea where my face record and all that kind of stuff went. But yeah, in the UK, ask legal at each site, and data privacy at each site or each jurisdiction can tell you definitively what their policy or their plan is for that.
What is GDPR?
General data protection. I forget what the R is. Good grief, you caught me, Lydia.
Sorry.
Busted.
But it's protecting your data.
That's exactly right. Yeah, always remember that DP is at the middle of it. Data protection is at the heart of GDPR. That's a little corny, but it helps me remember it. So,
Lance, do you think the European market is more advanced than, you know, as far as technology and for safety and security than the US?
Well, I think, I don't know that you can measure it that way. We had, in the United States, we had NIST, the National Institute for Standards and Technology. We've had that since the 60s, right? And we've always had these skunk works, you know, Area 51 level security standards for federal, but not for the public. And the public could emulate that, but it was always so cryptic. It was so difficult to understand. GDPR was revolutionary because they spelled it out in lay terms, in business terms, where you didn't have to be a government scientist to understand what they meant on line 85-2. It was very plain, very simple terminology. And so I think something is in a parallel. Europeans are usually faster to adopt new technology. Mobile banking, banks are very small footprints over there in Europe. Everybody's okay with it. Here in the United States, it may be more of a traditional preference where folks still want to go in and see a human teller and work. And that's just the banking industry per se. So I think it's a little more granular than just an overall piece there.
Gotcha. Does anyone else have any questions? Anyone?
All right.
Well, I'm going to send this back to Lance. Thank you so much. You know,
yeah, thank you, everyone.
Everything that you've done, again, for Stanley Security and here and giving us this presentation, we greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure. I'll go ahead and drop off. Everyone, thank you again for the invite. What a pleasure. Enjoy your time. Be safe.
Okay. And
Thanks, Lance.
I'm going to pass this back on to Sherry. Oh, you're on mute. You're on mute.
And everything I said was so important, I can't remember it now. Thank you, Lance. Thank you, Scott from Pegasus, for joining us, for sponsoring today, for talking to us. Everyone, we do have another breakout session where you can all meet each other and network. And Jolie, stop laughing at me. where you can all meet. Let's remember that on the 24th is the breakfast, I believe, and the 22nd is, or is it opposite? Somebody can let us know. Remember the Oceana breakfast, and I Love a Clean San Diego. If you need to know how to contact, please check the chat. Karen has put that in there for your convenience. Let's also remember the golf outing. If you want to sign up, she also put that in the chat. And thank you. Will's going to separate us all into breakout rooms. Let's have a good time networking. Otherwise, we'll see you guys again at one of the events or in May. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.